Good morning, Bermuda, and thank you for joining us for our final Bermuda Youth Connect constituency interview. My name is Haley Tiart, and today I'm joined by Malay Robinson, and we're pleased to interview the candidates running in Constituency 35, Stans North Central. Today, we have with us the Progressive Labor Party candidate, incumbent and former Speaker of the House, Mr. Dennis Lister. We also have Mr. Rodrae Durrant of the One Bermuda Alliance and Mr. Christopher Bean, who's making his debut in politics as an independent candidate. Thank you all for joining us. So
Thank you.
before we jump into questions, we'd like to give you each an opportunity to reintroduce or introduce yourself to Constituency 35 with 2 minutes for opening remarks. And Mr. Durrant, we'll start with you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, ladies, for having us. My name is Rodrae Durrant, 34-year-old father of two beautiful girls, one of my own. I currently work as a retail assistant manager. Um, sorry. Currently work as a retail assistant manager. I come from a background of blue collar people in the community. My grandfather and father were well-known plumbers in the community, and other members of my family, the Bean family. Most people know me as a Bean. Very prominent members of the community throughout its history, and it's those morals and values that I bring to the table. Um, Once again, I decided to put my head in this race. I believe in the One Bermuda Alliance and their vision to deliver the Bermuda that was always promised. And I look forward to working with this group of people and everyone to deliver what is needed.
Thank you, Mr. Durrant. I'll pass it over to Mr. Lister.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and appreciate the opportunity that Bermuda Youth Connect has given for us to have this forum to just have a conversation. As you introduced earlier, I am served as the Speaker of Parliament in the recent parliaments. I've been in Parliament for a number of years, the current longest serving member of Parliament. With that, I've been a member of the opposition. I've been a member of I've served as a backbench in that capacity. I've been a minister in the government, and in the earlier governments, PRP government, and this government, I've been the Speaker. I mention that because that didn't come easy. It came through the old-fashioned way of hard work. I didn't just get up one day and say I was going to get involved and run as a politician. I got involved in things in the community, worked in the community for a number of years, worked in the political cycle behind the scene for quite some time before I even stood on the polls to be elected as a candidate. And so I don't bring just a atmosphere of saying I'm going to join because of the current time of atmosphere that's happening. It came as a result of really making a commitment to the community from the early start to say that there are things going on inside of my community that I wanted to have a hand in fixing, and they help set in the direction of Bermuda. And from that, I've continued over the years to just continue to try and be that force in a sense to help bring a voice that directs and changes or bring changes where they're needed.
Thank you, Mr. Lister. And last but not least, Mr. Bean.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, like everyone said, thank you to Bermuda Youth Connect for bringing about this opportunity. I'm very honored to share this platform with these two lovely gentlemen. My name is Christopher Bean, and I am the independent candidate. I currently serve as the operations manager for Dignity House, a private psychiatric rehabilitation center. I'm also the board chairman of Beyond Inclusion, which is a organization that provides respite care and meaningful activities for individuals with support needs, as well as advocacy. I'm also the operations director for Pay a Kid, and nonprofit organization that provides vocational skills training and employment for youth ages 13 through to 18. I say all of that to pretty much say that I've been a servant of the people for my entire life. I'm a son of the soil. Grew up Bob's Valley Lane, Birds Island. So I'm a product of my community, and I decided to come back, and represent my community at a higher level and put my hat in the ring as an independent candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Malay for our first question.
Good morning, everyone. So our first question is for everybody. Access to quality healthcare is a fundamental concern for our community. Somerset does not have a community health clinic. The nearest one is in Warwick. This is a growing concern for constituents of C35 from all ages. What measures will you implement to ensure that all constituents have timely and affordable access to healthcare services? Mr. Lister, you can answer first.
Thank you. As I answer this question, let me put some parameters around it for myself. That doesn't affect the other two, but for myself. As I've indicated earlier, I serve as speaker, and the intent is to continue to serve as speaker after this election, which means I have to be neutral from the day-to-day politics of any party, irrespective of which party it is. I don't sit in those conversations anymore. However, as a speaker, my role is to run the parliament on a neutral basis from that point of view. So I have to put that in parameters. I'm not involved in the policy making of the parties anymore, but whether it's PRP or any party that's there. But with that said, the issue of having the healthcare in the West End addressed is one that's been outstanding for a while. If you can remember when let me say, some of you may not remember, but when the fire station was put near the Southampton Glebe there at the station that it is now, location it is now, there was conversation back then to how can we also include some type of healthcare facility so that the folks in the West End wouldn't have to go all the way to Hamilton, as was done in the East End with the facility that was done in St. David's. That conversation got absorbed by events of the time that was taking place financially. But from where I sit and in the outside conversations that I do have with the PRP and the government, is that it isn't a forgotten idea. It's an idea that they do want to recognize needs to be addressed. They do recognize needs to be addressed, and they intend to address it in providing better health care for the West End. The clinic in Somerset used to serve in a smaller degree. That I understand is one of those that are earmarked to be brought back online, back in service, just as steps to go forward. But again, the intent is not to ignore Somerset, not to ignore the West End in providing the additional health care that's required.
Thank you. Mr. Durrant, I'll open the floor to you now on this question.
Yes, I used to actually go to the clinic in the dentist's office around Mangrove Bay, so it was very important within the community for all ages. I think it's something that we all need to look at together, government and opposition, to make these things happen within the community, because I do have constituents that drive all the way town to pick up prescriptions and to get medical care. And some of them have to catch the bus and stuff. So for me, that's unacceptable. I think they should be able to have somewhere within the area that they can go to directly to receive any medical care or any medical attention that they need. And yes, like I said, I think us as a community as well need to get together and make these things happen. I think there's a lot of people on our end that have the expertise to open up the clinic or do something public together to make it work.
Thank you. Mr. Bean.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm definitely working in the healthcare field myself. I see that that's a need. Looking at the resident census and the statistics in C35 and also C36, there's an aging population. So having access to healthcare clinics is definitely a priority. But I know that we did have a clinic at Mangrove Bay, and I believe that it will be imperative to bring that back. But even on the side of private practices and ensuring good succession planning, Dr. Shaw, I believe, is the current physician down there that tailors to most of the area. But he's getting up there in age, and he needs somebody to, step in and replace him when the time comes to serve that community. Also, just streamlining a relationship between the pharmacies and the clinics when they do open to ensure that there's no barrier to medication, prescriptions, and different things like that. Also, the fact of future care and health insurance, we need to ensure that those barriers are limited as well.
Thank you all for your answers. It was very insightful. I think that it's a really important point for our community, given like Mr. Bean said, the aging population, and many people don't have many people rely on public transportation, so it's an important thing to have in our community. I'm going to move on to the next question, which again is for everybody. Um, what proactive and community-driven strategies do you propose to prevent and address antisocial behaviors in our constituency while ensuring the well-being and inclusivity of all individuals? Mr. Durrant, you can answer that first.
I think that's very important for me. I think it starts from early childhood development. One thing that was happening in my era was that we didn't have much role models to teach us the rights from wrongs, you know. So I think it's very important that we start at an early age developing children's morals, their values, and eventually that will lead to a better culture. I believe it's all connected. That's why I believe back to the basics. We fix our family, we fix community, we fix the culture. um, you know, a lot of things I see within the Somerset area. Somerset has always been a resilient place. The people in the area always took care of each other. We're all one big family, no matter what border, what constituency you are in. When it comes to the antisocial behavior, one of the areas that a lot of constituents have concerns about is the policing. I know that the police are understaffed. We don't have a fully functional police station in Somerset at this moment. But overall, I think again it goes back to our culture and leadership within the community to show these young men that there's more opportunities out there. Most times, I feel like our weekends are spent chilling out on the street, drinking, or using street pharmaceuticals, and that's just always been the go-to for a lot of my young friends and a lot of my people that I grew up with. So I think it needs to be more opportunity for us as individuals to explore not only ourselves but the world around us, and I think that's what's lacking from our community.
Just to add on to that, do you have any specific initiatives in mind that you think that you would like to implement or spearhead that you can share with us at this time? If not, it's fine, but I just thought I'll ask.
Now, one thing I would like to do is more mentorship in the community. That's something I've done on my own. I never went through any organizations to do that, but it is something that I would like to do. Reached out to Bermuda Mental Health Organization. Somebody worked at Eugene from the Imperial Group doors. I would like to work with him. But overall, I think there's so many areas. I think it's so hard to pinpoint specifically where we can address these issues. But again, early childhood development, giving kids morals and values from the beginning. Youth and sports. I think sports is a very good outlet, especially for our young men, even young women now. Exercise, a healthy diet, healthy mindset, and from there, I think we can cure a lot of these things. Specifically in our culture, I think most times we're given this crutch. Um, we speak about our oppression more than our progression, and I think that's one of the biggest things within our culture that we need to address to show young Black boys that you are somebody and that you can be somebody.
Thank you for that. Mr. Bean, go ahead.
Yeah, so I definitely have to agree with Mr. Durant's statements. I do think that a strong sense of community will be the foundation to addressing the antisocial behavior and crime that we're witnessing. It has only gotten worse, but when you look at the community, we're also falling apart in that aspect as well. Also, just really having an individual that's able to bridge that gap in the sense of, somebody that's been around the area, knows the individuals as well, and can be a source of communication or middleman in that sense to express the concerns of the constituents. I also have an organization, like I mentioned, with my brother. And one of the goals of that organization is to create intergenerational connectivity, which means pairing students with senior citizens so that seniors can get jobs done free of charge. And what that does, it prevents that isolation that you currently see nowadays. And there's a lot of wisdom in the seniors, and that wisdom needs to be passed down. And that's how you make people familiar. I can also remember a point in time in which Sands actually used to have fairs. That doesn't happen anymore. Right. And that was a great community outlet in which you were able to find out whose child is whose parent, and different things of that nature. So bringing back some of those activities. But I also would like to highlight that I believe that the foundation of antisocial behavior and crime is one, mental health, and two, our current economical standing that we're in. People are doing whatever they can to survive.
Thank you for that. That was really insightful. Mr. List, if you have anything else to add, the floor is open to you.
Sure. You know, I like listening to the younger generation when they express themselves. So let me put that on the table. And I'm listening to both gentlemen saying positive. But having been around as long as I'm around, there's two things I always note. These things have success when there's community buy-in, and the other piece is that the foundation that we should be laying should always start at home. There's a gap between there, and there's not a new gap. This historically sort of comes up at different times. I'm listening and saying, you know what? I'm remembering the different times that we've been involved with different groups, whether it's a church group or a community-led group, to address some of the issues that we've had in our communities. The issue of young men hanging out in a negative atmosphere isn't new. It's one that's moved around the cycle of life. You know, we go through it, we get some success, and then we move forward, and another group comes behind it. But the key to whatever we've done it in the past to have a positive impact is we've always had to have the buy-in from the community. We can't just go in there as a single individual or group and say we're going to do this. We have to bring those who are, one, affected by it, and those who are affected by those in the immediate community, but there's also the families. There's families that are represented by those young people who are out there doing things that they shouldn't do. I can think of past successes that I've seen in the community is that when we were able to get some of those family members involved in the program, getting the churches involved, and it brings a connection that we as an individual necessarily can bring, that a family member or friend can bring. And it's all part of community effort that's going to make that happen. Yes, we have it again, but it's part of that cycle of the different generations. And it's also recognizing that we have to strengthen the community relationships and reach out, say, come. I think sit there and think about the past successes. We've had different churches involved, different pastors at those different times that have opened their doors to us, being a community, coming in and working with the church in their particular area to try and say, let's get on top of this problem again. So the door to how it can be done, the door that is there success examples in the past? Yes, there's success examples in the past. So I think we shouldn't shy away from it, but we have to embrace that it is a problem that takes community effort. I just didn't put it on police, and police have their role. Let me put that on the table. There's policing that's required, and some of the policing that we had in the past, we don't necessarily see today. And I was a strong component of community policing, policemen walking the beat. When the policemen walk the beat, they daily interaction, they daily get conversations that bring information that can help keep them abreast of what's going on. So I support that piece. But the other piece is making sure we all buy in and bring the community together with this. And finally, it starts at home. Young men who are out there had a father. Young men who are out there are fathers. And they have to understand that they need to play a role in setting the foundation that's going to give a positive direction to their children. But it starts with them stepping up and saying, I have to take responsibility to this as well. Let's just take a handout. I have to go alone and be lifted up.
Thank you, Mr. Lister. Can I go ahead and move on to our next question? Somerset used to be booming with small businesses, as home to many trade works. What specific initiatives will you implement to leverage the local assets of C35 to diversify our economy, create sustainable jobs, and support small businesses within the community? I'm going to pass this question first to Mr. Bean.
So yeah, that's something that I've been looking into greatly. Not just myself, but my brother as well, who's running in C36. The real overall goal is community wealth building, in the sense of one thing that I would love to do is create a tradesman register. So you know who all the local tradesmen are within your community. I also believe in a strong work release program that would be paired with that tradesman register for San Secondary, in which the students can go on a day release and learn trades essentially. And what that would do also is it would instill pride in their work and instill pride in the overall community as a whole. I believe that there's a lot of talented and expertise within the community, and I think that it should not be neglected. And opening platforms and opportunities and overall community wealth building would be the best way to target that.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Mr. Lister?
Now, in my introduction, I didn't give a full introduction because it's been too long. But one of the bases of my community activity started because I owned a small business in Somerset when I first came back to Bermuda. And it was sort of what ignited me in the public role, because I saw firsthand what was needed as a small business to try and bring success in our community. I think Somerset has been hit hard by the economic downturns that came in years past. And the emphasis then was put on rebuilding Dockyard quite a bit, and a lot of the energy went out into Dockyard. We've sort of bypassed the village to get there when we were rebuilding the West End. The Dockyard is seeming to be standing on its own. It's now time to put some of that focus back into the village area and get our village functioning again with our small businesses. The small business development, I'm used to the wrong term to change the name right now, but I support the efforts that they are constantly trying to do to enhance and support the efforts of small business throughout the island, but Somerset particularly, of course, because I'm in Somerset, but Somerset particularly to try and get the economic growth back on a greater atmosphere in the Sands community. But we don't stand alone in that, and that the whole island felt that during the economic turnaround. But yes, having had a small business in Somerset, I knew the challenges, aware of the challenges that we have, particularly as a small business, competing with larger businesses, competing with those who have more sort of resources in a sense. But we have to recognize that small business has always been a key part of the financial, the economic fabric of Bermuda. And when it hurts, we all hurt. So we have to make sure that there's a platform that allows them to grow again. And I think when you listen to the government with the tax initiatives that are putting in place and the duty reduction, things like that, is to help put a platform so that their small businesses can find a footing to stand even in this hard economic challenges that they're coming out of.
Thank you, Mr. Lister. And Mr. Durrant?
Yes, like Mr. Lester said, I think Somerset was built off of tradesmen and entrepreneurs. My grandfather and my father, again, in the plumbing business for a long time, and I grew up around the industry doing construction. My great grandfather owned a grocery store across from Somerset Cricket Club, way before I was born. But again, I think it's very important. First thing I think is we need the people. I think Christopher and Mr. Lister can agree. Somerset isn't as vibrant as it used to be. I mean, I look around, even when you walk across these schools, the whole schools out on the field, and you see very little kids, and it's very disappointing. So for me, it goes back again to the community. We need to build our families so that we can build our economy. When it comes to passing policy, I think there's a lot of organizations like BEDC that does help entrepreneurs. They help me and my girlfriend out starting our small bakery business. But again, I think we still need to intrigue more people to take that step. Most people are just content with working the 8 to 5 and leaving it to that. But then again, as government, I think government also needs to create policy to protect Bermudians. Again, I grew up in the construction industry. When I was young, you could go to a job site, at least half the job site was Bermudian. Now you look around and there's not too many locals on these job sites. So again, we need to intrigue young people to get involved. I think growing up, a lot of my generation were told that if we didn't work in a bank or office, that we wasn't successful. So, it's kind of a conditioning that's happened to people to want to expand again and develop these skills. Without farmers, without builders, without plumbers, we don't have anything. So, these are people that build society. And again, I think there needs to be policy again to protect Bermudians. I think the OVA will deliver that. I myself, spent a lot of my life competing for jobs with foreigners, even at times training foreigners. for the same job that I'm competing for. So again, we do need to go back to community, build the community, build that culture. Bermuda culture was built off of our hospitality and our generosity. Again, to me, that ties into our pride of being Bermudians. I mean, I feel we've lost that in our service industry as well. So overall, I think, again, it's a big umbrella that we need to address all of these issues. It starts back with the community.
Thank you all for your
Could I
thoughts
add
on
just one more thing? Sorry.
that. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
On that fact, definitely considering the small businesses that did build Somerset. That's why I think that it is imperative for our schools to have a very strong work release program to help support some of these schools, and it would really benefit in the terms of succession planning, where you don't have to look overseas for that new position. You know that when that student comes out, that's your guy. They've already been trained up. They know what they're doing, and that way you keep pride within the community and you keep the succession within the community as well. And as history shows it, and it says finances and money and everything of that nature flows within a community or recycles 3 or 4 times. That's how you build community wealth.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Can I just add to that real quick? Because we did, I know Christopher and his brothers big with developing kids and stuff. I think I found out that we both went Sands. I think we did.
Yes.
We had the DNT program. I heard that the DNT program hasn't been operational. Shout out to Mr. Naylor for quite some time. And again, it goes back to a conditioning that I feel has helped happen in our culture. I met a young man yesterday, 20 years old. He's here to work on the Tynes Bay facility. He has a master's in engineering and is going on to be a lawyer and other things he said. And for me, I was like, this is what we need in our culture to intrigue these young men to explore not only themselves, but the world around them. There's so many new technologies and so many new business ideas that's out there right now. When we as kids, we didn't have streamers. Now you have streamers making millions of dollars and helping people in their community. So, I think it's across the board. You don't just have to push kids to particular areas. I think they need to expand.
Thank you.
Maybe the other gentleman will be able to comment. Let me just add a comment. What we saw in our history in the past compared to where we are today, tradesmen were a big part of what made Bermuda. Our middle class was made off of the construction industry and the hospitality industry, which meant when you had the tradesmen in the neighborhood, what did they do when they needed an extra hand? They grabbed the kids from the neighborhood and said, today you'll work with me on the plumbing, tomorrow, and then the carpenter may grab you, the mason may grab you. We got exposed to the trades at a very young age, which a lot of our young people aren't today because we walked away from the trades. I think Mr. Durrant said it earlier, we wanted to be suit and tie downtown. And we convinced ourselves that there was a place for us there, but by doing that, we also lost that feeder going into the trades that we earned as an industry in Bermuda. And we have to get that mindset back that there's nothing wrong with trades, being a tradesman. We will always need tradesmen. You always want somebody to repair or build your house. And if we don't have tradesmen locally, that's why we see so many others be stepping into a trade that we earn. So the mindset, well, my point here is that we as adults have to encourage those coming behind us that the trade is for us. Yes, you can have a job in a suit and tie somewhere, but we can't push everybody that way and ignore the trades, because trades will always be needed. Trades have provided some very strong family home settings for people who worked in an industry that have been very successful in the past. If we look around, most of us could put our hands on someone in our family who was a tradesman and helped to lay foundations for us to be who we are today.
Thank you, Mr. Lister. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Malay to ask the next question.
Okay, so the next 3 questions will be like one for each person. So yeah, I'm just directing it at whom each question is directed towards. So the first question is for you, Mr. Bean. You mentioned on your platform that one of your top 3 priorities for change are, and I quote, enhancing mental health and disability services, expanding access to care and opportunities, promoting inclusion, and reducing stigma, end quote. Can you expand on this by outlining further some of the ideas and initiatives that you have in mind for this area of concern?
So yes, definitely. I think that currently we're in a predicament right now, or crisis, a mental health crisis in our country, and we really need to streamline our resources towards, destigmatizing mental health as well as disability services. Even as far as all of the barriers that come into place when you're trying to access assistance for these different services. Um, I think that it is really important. At the end of the day, mental health does pour into your physical health, and there's a lot of focus on physical health. But as far as mental health goes, it's very taboo to talk about it. I think implemented it into our educational system would be a very, proactive step. We have a lot of classes where we talk about anatomy and physiology, but we don't talk about depression and anxiety. Also, mental health first aid. I think that there have been a lot of proactive steps in that direction, but there's still a lot more work to be done. And as an advocate for mental health myself, I do plan on continuing doing what I have been doing, but allowing to be the representative of C35. I would like to bring it to the, you know, discourse or the public discourse of the people to ensure that they're educated.
Thank you for
Mr.
that.
Reed.
Oh, go ahead, Haley.
You're all good. Our next question is for Mr. Durrant because one of your key areas of focus was to fix and improve the 9 beaches for community pleasure. Can you elaborate on why you feel this is an important issue to address? And secondly, how do you plan to achieve this goal?
Uh, yes, because Nine Beaches spent a lot of time there as a kid. So a lot of memories there. I remember when the hotel was open, you would think me and my friends worked there because we would go down there with our bikes and we would ride with the tourists all around the railway trails, teaching them stuff. But is I think we do really need to look at how to bring investment into the area. Again, our bread and butter was tourism. I think it's become, we gave it the cold shoulder since international business has been in the industry, but I think we do need to get back to our hospitality industry. Um, Not only to create jobs for people to work, but we also need to attract people here to spend the money. One thing I noticed with the cruise ships coming in dockyard, a lot of the older generation don't like to spend as much money. I think we need to start targeting the younger generation, people with families, giving them entertainment and things to do, not only just for the tourists, but for locals as well. So I think it's very important that we look at, if not internal investment, outside investment to bring not only hotels to the island and different venues to the island. I think one of OBA's stances is to build a multicultural conference center where we can have entertainment and different conferences that come to the island. So I think that's very important. Other than just the Nine Beaches area, I think there's a lot of things we need to look at within the Summers community. More recreational spaces. One of the eyesores in our neighborhood is the Sands 360 building. When we was young, we had the Springfield, and that was very important to us. As kids, we'd hang out there. We had mentors like Sergeant Yard and different people who talked to us and worked with us in the community. So there's a lot of areas we need to address. Not only that, sustainable farming and fishing for our industries. That's another area we need to address, other than infrastructure. Again, I feel like it's such a big umbrella when it comes to these things, but I think it's very important that one, I think us candidates within this area can set an example for the rest of the island. I don't see why we can't create an atmosphere where the Rodrae Durrants, the Christopher Deans, and the Dennis Listers can all work together with the people in the community that with different organizations to make these things happen. And that's another reason I stepped in, because I wanted to help foster that type of atmosphere where we can all work together and get these results. I may not have all the plans or ideas. I may not have all the answers, but somebody out there does. And I think that's why we create a transparent and collaborative government or community as well, where we can all make these things happen and have a voice in it.
Thank you, Mr. Durrant. I just want to give Mr. Lister an opportunity to weigh in this conversation if there's anything that you would like to add about just improving the infrastructure within the Somerset community.
Okay. I think what we've said thus far is that the economic downturn really impacted Somerset. It really did. We had a lot of hopes. We had 9 beaches open, and 9 beaches would be an example of industry coming back into Somerset. I mean, the hospitality industry growing. And with that type of activity happening, you would have tourists moving around, so other things would generate in the community. It didn't happen. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But it's one of those exercises of looking not only just in Somerset, but around the island, where we had hospitality businesses, hotels, etc., small business, large hotels, small hotels, that we've taken off the map in recent years. And each of those have affected that community it was in. Somerset has been impacted by it. You have 9 beaches, you have Lantana, all Somerset areas, which were outstanding, particularly Lantana, one of those outstanding niche hotels that people used to come back to. The efforts by the government have always been to try and get interest in reestablishing those hotel properties for the hospitality industry, whether it's a large or small property. It's not an overnight fix, but it's one that we have to say, if we are serious about remaining in the industry, we have to generate, let's see those properties regenerated back into our communities. On the other side of that is, I think you mentioned the places like 360, like Springfield. They serve different purposes in the past. And we missed the purpose that they served then as time has generated going forward. What it done, it also took away from us a location. And you think of what Springfield was back then when people were able to go to it in that perspective. Now it's a retail outlet serving a different purpose. 360 is one of the unfortunate that have happened, because we had those of us who were around when 360 was generated as an idea, looked at 360 as being what could be a flagship for what could have been done in other communities in the island. And as one of those who were heavily in conversations when that was taking place, I would like to think that there is a future where the 360 can be revitalized. It's a conversation that takes place regularly with those persons who have the know behind the scenes to try and make it happen. I know there's commitment by the school board who runs that area to see that, if they could, it'll happen tomorrow. But there are issues and hurdles that we have to overcome. And I don't want people to think that it's a lost cause. It's a challenge. Yes, it's a challenge. But we can't write it off as a lost cause.
Thank you, Ms. Lisser. I'm going to give Mr. Bean an opportunity to add his sense just briefly, though, because we want to move on to the next question.
Got you. So I did just want to mention, yes, East Sands 360 is unfortunately the direction that it did take. In terms of building back up our community, we often look at only 2 sectors, the government as well as the private sector, but we completely neglect the third sector, which are a bunch of great nonprofit organizations that we have on island. Bermuda is Love is one of them. Homes is another one. Habitat for Humanity is another one. There's all of these different nonprofit organizations that I don't think we have utilized the full potential of tapping into them. These are people that are servants and are doing it free of charge, essentially, and because their heart is in it. So, really collaborating with these guys and seeing how we can mutually achieve our objectives together as a community and their organization, that's important to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Malay, I think you have the next question.
Yes, so the next question is geared toward Mr. Lister. So Mr. Lister, as the longest serving member of Parliament since 1989 and the last Speaker of the House, you've been a prominent figure in Bermuda's political landscape. How do you respond to some concerns that fresh leadership may be needed to bring new ideas and more effective change to our constituency specifically?
Well, let me start off by saying, I think early in this comment, I welcome the fact that these gentlemen on this talk show with me this morning are young men, because I was their age, or in between. I was I was a little older than Mr. Bean and a little younger than Mr. Durrant. Than Mr. Durrant when I began. So I understand the desire to bring fresh ideas and fresh faces into the room, but also recognize the importance of having statesmen in the room as well. My role that I play as speaker in this political sense today, if anybody follows what I have done in the years that I've been speaker, is simply to be that statesman in the room to make sure we stay stable of course that has to be done on how we handle public business in Parliament. I'm actively involved still in the community. I can play the role in the community that I played in the past as with the political arm of the party, because I have to be neutral. So I have to have a distance from that. But the activity of Seance community is always at first and foremost in my heart. But as time is going on, you understand life brings different stages of life. The stage I'm at now is that senior spokesman in the room is vital to how we set the foundation for young men like Mr. Bean and Mr. Durrant when they come into this space in the future. If proper foundation isn't set, then they will know what to strive for. And for those again who listen to Parliament, listen to how I try and conduct Parliament and make sure the proper decorums and things are done, so that when I go, whoever's in the Parliament in that chair, whoever sits in Parliament as a member, walks in the door understanding how they should be conducting themselves, not because of themselves, but because they represent people who gave them the opportunity to sit in that seat that they will hold. We have too often seen times when people forget that someone else put them there. They didn't come by themselves. They didn't come to voice their own personal agenda. They came to speak for those who don't have a voice to speak in that chamber. That's my job, to make sure that the proper decorum is set. So that because I'm not going to be here forever, but there will be others who come behind me. There'll be young people who come in every time there's an election, and those faces have to understand that there is a purpose to how they conduct themselves. There's reason why we conduct the business in the manner that it should be conducted. Not on a personal level, but on a level that talks to the facts and the issues of what's confronted Bermuda daily.
Thank you, Mr. Lister.
Okay, so the next question is for both Mr. Bean and Mr. Durrant. Since you are both new to the political arena, can you please tell me and my fellow constituents of C35 why we should put our trust in you to represent us in Parliament? Sorry, I'll do Mr. Bean first.
Definitely. So as you guys know, I am an independent candidate. So I believe that there's a lot of strength in that. You have unfiltered representation. Two, you have policy that can be based off of community needs and not necessarily party agenda. You have an individual that will hold the government accountable. And you also have freedom to build alliances across party lines. And I think that that's one that often gets overlooked. So in the sense of, yes, I am new to the political arena. Yes, I am an independent, but I have been serving my community before this. I don't think you have to be an MP to be a community man. However, I would love to be an MP to raise my level of impact and bring it to the legislative level. Also, I would like to implement a grassroots up policy making. Anytime that a policy is brought to the House of Assembly, I believe that's imperative to consult with your constituency before having a vote on it. I'm not there to speak for the people. I'm there to speak on behalf of the people. So really getting their insights, their concerns, and passing a vote off of what their decision is or what their stance is.
Thank you, Mr. Durrant.
Yes, again, I grew up in Somerset my entire life, so I'm lived with the people and the problems within the area forever. You know, it's my family prospered in this area, and I will continue. I would love my family to continue to prosper in this neighborhood and the greater Bermuda. One thing that I bring is integrity, and another reason with the One Bermuda Alliance, I'm aligned with people who have the same values and morals that I do. So again, I think it's very important that you align yourself. Again, I know a lot of people talk about independence, how much they can do in the house. Again, I think we need to create an atmosphere where PLP, FDM, Independent, One Bermuda Alliance all work together to address these issues along with the community and the people in the community. So again, I think that's what I can bring to the table. I believe I have the soft skills to get hard results. Also, be a representation, some leadership for some of the people that can relate to me within the area. A lot of young people, we come from a different generation. We have a lot of we have new problems and new ideas. So it's important that people like myself and Christopher step forward and show them that they can have a say in the future and that they have someone to listen to their voice, not only speak on their behalf, but work on their behalf. So again, that's what I think I bring to the table: integrity, morals, principles, and values. And again, I just want to be collaborative with everyone involved, everyone that lives in the neighborhood again, let's get back to community. When I was young, one of the biggest sayings was, "It takes a village." That's the only time we should be tribal in Bermuda. The only time we should be divided is cup match time. But other than that, I think we should all be together, not pick sides, not vote on party or identity politics, but vote for the best person you think represents you. And again, whether that's Mr. Lister or Christopher, I will be there to support them every step along the way, and that's what's needed.
Absolutely.
Set an example to the rest of Bermuda that this can happen, this can be done. So let's make it happen.
I think it's so important that you make that sentiment because party politics has become so prominent, as we can see in our island. And I think it's important that we have the best people in Parliament. Mm-hmm. So I hope that's one message that Bermuda can take from you. Go ahead, Haley. I'll pass it to you.
Could I just give a quick analogy based off of what Mr. Durrant said? And I really do strongly believe in picking an individual not based off of party, but based off of their merit. A lot of our Bermudians, we watch football, and the easiest way to explain it is if SEC is playing PHC and SEC wins, SEC doesn't go and represent Bermuda at a national level, does it? No. You still pick the best members from every single team in every single position to represent Bermuda on a national level so it can compete on an international level. You don't get in by default by being on the winning team. So really choosing your MPs based off of their merit and not necessarily their party affiliations is really important.
Thank you, Mr. Bean, for those sentiments. Mr. Lister, I want to end with you. You're not new to politics. You're a seasoned politician. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to C35 and reassure them that you're the best candidate.
Well, let me start by sort of addressing the elephant in the room in the conversation that just took place in reference to the independents. We see so many candidates. I think this is the first time we've ever had so many candidates in an election since my time and before my time. The elephant in the room is both parties have had issues in recent times that have turned people away from the party. Let me use that word. These gentlemen are both young men. I said earlier that when I got involved in politics, I was in that same age bracket. What I didn't say, though, was that I got involved because at that era, that particular time, there was problems in the political space then. There was problems in the political space. I came home in the midst of a split that was happening in the Progressive Labor Party at that time. I came home when there was uncertainty about what tomorrow looked like for the party. But I looked at it as a family. That was my family. That's the party that I sort of became affiliated with the things that I was doing. And I got involved with how can we make the party better for a group of individuals. We were working. One day we wake up and find that group of individuals had gone and formed a third party. I quickly disassociated myself with them and came back and worked with the party because my goal was always to strengthen and improve what we had. And the energy went to improving and fixing what we had. And spent years doing that before I even stepped on a platform to say I'm going to be a candidate. Years before that, learning what the system was, learning what the atmosphere was, learning what was needed to improve that system under which we function as a country under this political structure that we have. It was years before I stood on a platform, but it was during that period I was working heavily within that organization to try and fix what we saw. In that time, I got exposed to all the different avenues of what makes politics work politically in a party, what makes it work as a country level. Part of that meant visiting Parliament, sitting in Parliament, understanding the process of Parliament, working with the current MPs of that day to help bring their issues to the floor and doing homework to supply information to them for their debates and building their debates. Because remember, the PLP had never been government, so they didn't have the advantage of a civil servant who provided information. We were those guys on the ground helping to do that, helping to improve. Okay. In the current number of people who are running right now, I say this to speaker, so I see everybody who walks in the chamber. Most of them I've never seen come into the chamber. They want to come in this space and haven't taken the time to come in and figure out how this space works so that they can bring improvement. Sitting on the outside, looking from the outside in, the grass always looks green on the outside. Come into space and learn the space so that you can really get a feel for what it is so you can understand it better. Invitations, and I have no bones about it. I've actually asked individuals who's out there, why don't you come visit Parliament? You think you want to be in the space? Come visit. Come sit in there on an occasion. Come talk to me after. Let me walk you through what this is all about. It's unfortunate that I can't sit and say that anybody's taking that invitation up, but they all want to be there. That disturbs me because that ain't the atmosphere that I came up in. The atmosphere that I came in, we realized we had to roll up our sleeves and do some hard work to get there and come to in a space that you understand. I think the atmosphere of having all the independence, and I recognize that things aren't going the best in having such a large majority and a small minority as we have today with the OBA only having 6 members in recent years. But that's not the first time in our history. Back in the 80s, the PLP had 15 seats and lost an election where they went down to 7 seats. There were 40 members in the House, not 30, not 36, but 40 members. During that period that they had 7 members, you would never have thought they had dropped the numbers. You would have thought they still had a full complement because those guys walked in the room understanding as small a number they had, they still had a job to do. They still had to represent the people who put them there, the voices that couldn't be there to speak for themselves. And they carried themselves in that manner during that period. After that period, they went from 7 to 18 seats because they worked. They never dropped the ball. And we don't see that today with the small group that currently sits in the opposition. And that's why we have a disillusion about how party politics can still serve Bermuda. We have to understand that. All right, go ahead.
No problem. I just want to give Mr. Durrant and Mr. Bean 30 seconds to respond each to your comments, and then we're going to wrap this conversation up. I'll start with Mr. Bean, we'll end with Mr. Durrant, and then we'll have our closing statement.
No, like, yes, definitely. Just based off what Mr. Lister said, he is the most senior member in Parliament, and there's a wealth of knowledge behind that. If I am successful, Mr. Lister, if you get a knock at your door and it's me asking for some advice on something, just know that. And at the end of the day, I know that I am young enough to know that I don't know it all, but I am also old enough to know better. I believe that it does require some innovation, and necessarily if I did drop into the forest, then I wouldn't be able to see the landscape in that sense. So I've been observing from afar, and I would, I do have some ideas, and I would love to share those ideas with C35 and get their input on them and, put them forward, essentially. Unrefined as an independent candidate.
Thank you. Mr. Durrant, if you want to briefly respond to Mr. Lister's comments.
Yes, again, I think I've had numerous opportunities throughout this journey to speak to Mr. Lister, get to see him every so often at the Fraser's house. Again, he's a neighborhood hero to this day, I walk through my grandfather's den, and he still has PLP pictures, that Terry Lister and Dennis Lister all over his wall. So again, it's nothing personal. I think for myself, again, every generation has its own issues, and my generation feel we have been forgotten for quite some time. You know, not to point fingers at anybody, but we just feel like we haven't had any representation. Again, this is why you have so many independent candidates or people like myself stepping into this arena, because we just want to be that representation for the next generation, you know, and make sure the longevity of Bermuda and Bermudians as a whole is taken care of. So again, I just think we all just need to work together and make these things happen.
Thank you, Mr. Durrant. I'm gonna.
My comment on that would be, this gentleman you're talking to has never taken comments personal. That's why one of the reasons I've been able to serve as long as I've served. That's one of the reasons I have a relationship across the political lines, because I understand that all of us who stand in that room in Parliament, who come there with the goodness of their heart for the people who put them there. My job is to make sure we provide an atmosphere that can flourish, where that atmosphere can flourish. But it's nothing personal. And I try and get the members who sit there to understand, do not take stuff personal. That's where we get ourselves in trouble.
Yes.
Some tough skin.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Lister. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close our conversation with 1 minute closing remarks, and I'll invite Mr. Bean to start first.
Yep. So definitely, I look forward to meeting every single member of C35. I'm out on foot every single day. I haven't gotten to everybody, but there's about 11 houses or one street that I haven't hit as of yet. So look forward to hearing that knock. Definitely looking forward to representing C35 as an independent candidate, bringing forth your ideas to the House of Parliament and ensuring that the people have a vote. Oftentimes you get this disillusion that MP stands for member of party rather than member of parliament. And we need to move away from that and put the power back into the hands of the people.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Mr. Durrant?
Yes, again, thank you for having me, you know, voicing my opinions. Thank you again to Christopher and Dennis Lister for being a part of this. And yes, again, the One Bermuda Alliance, I believe in their vision to deliver the Bermuda that was promised. So that's why I'm glad to work with this group of people. Everyone that's involved, all our morals and values aligned to create the fair Bermuda that we all been looking for and that we all need. We need to find a way to keep our people home and bring our people home so that way they have a place to call home always, you know. So again, I think it's very important that we make these things happen. We vote, we use our freedom, exercise our freedom to vote. Again, not for party, but for the best individual you think will make a difference in your community, whoever you feel you can relate to. And again, let's just set an example for the rest of the island and get these results.
Thank you, Mr. Durrant. And last but not least, Mr. Lister.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for hosting this again. I think it's been a good morning of conversation. I trust that, you know, people will see the importance of having us talk in this manner. I'm glad that this conversation didn't necessarily get caught up if the little things in the community like street lights, syrup, paving, or bushes cut, because some of the other conversations I've heard during this campaign, you hear candidates talking so much about that. And I say this for this reason. Once you become an MP, a lot of your relationship is almost like a doctor-lawyer relationship, meaning you can't say what you do. We get calls on a daily basis, weekly basis, to help families who are really struggling, families who something happened to their child, something happened to their house today, something happened seriously that, you know, it's life and death for them in that moment. We have to be able to walk into there and find some comfort and find some resource or results that bring some solution to that situation for them. I've done that for a number of years in this community. Quite often when I go canvassing like this, I get reminded of things I forgot about. I go in and someone say, you know, my grandma reminded me of when you done this for us. I can remember when I was little, you came in and helped out this and that. That's what we do on a daily basis, every day. Every week we get phone calls. And yes, we do get them at all hours and different times of the day. And it comes to the job. The job is a 24/7 job. It's not clocking in 9 o'clock in the morning, clocking out at 5 o'clock. If that's what people think this is about, don't join. Don't come in this space. The space is one that really requires you to make a full-time commitment to all the time, because the responsibility is full-time, constantly around it. You may not be in a position as a minister where you got a cabinet portfolio, but the responsibility as an MP constantly continues around the clock, and you always have to be there to serve your community. I've done that for a number of years. I welcome the opportunity that people to remember what I've done and continue to ask me to do it more for them. I'm here to serve. I've served in the various capacities within the political space, and I am here now in the senior role to help to make sure that we keep an atmosphere that keeps what we do uplift in an upbeat manner, one that we can be proud to say that our parliament is functioning better than what it could, in ways we've seen in the past, put it that way. We want to make sure that people in the room understand why we're there to serve, and we do it to the interest of those who put us there, not ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those remarks. Go ahead, Rodrae, 30 seconds.
Mentioned, yes, like Christopher said, we've all been out there knocking on doors in some areas we probably haven't been able to get to. But for myself, Chris Guntlet, Carl Nablet, and Malcolm will be having a town hall meeting tomorrow at from 6 to 8 o'clock at the West End School. So if there's anyone that hasn't seen me by then, you can come there, meet me there, and listen to what we have to say. But other than that, I'll be out for the rest of the weekend, hoping to meet with everybody.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This was really insightful, especially as a C35 constituent myself. And I hope that the members of our community, if they haven't been able to speak to you on their doorsteps, that they took something from this conversation from you. So that wraps up our discussion for today. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us. And the election is 4 days away on February 18th. Please come out and vote. We've conducted constituency interviews of candidates across the island. If you missed them, you can check out the replays on YouTube or Facebook for Bermuda Youth Connect. If you know or are a young voter, tune in tomorrow for our pre-election youth forum to hear exactly how each party or independent candidate aims to address our concerns. Have a great afternoon, Bermuda.